So we try not to focus on too much negative stuff on this channel. But, you know, when it comes our way, we got to do something about it. And almost always it has to do with a flipper or one of these classic car dealers. And this time is no exception. We come over to my buddy Chuck Yoder's place. Chuck, come over here, man. Get some parts machine for Project Bottle Rocket. That's Chuck.
Hi.
And so over here we're yapping, and he says, "What's that Mustang sitting over there?" You know, he had the car sitting outside. He says, "Well, guy bought it from a car dealer, one of those classic car dealers, and it needs all sorts of stuff." So I says, "What'd it do?" He says, "Well, he bought the car. He didn't drive the car. He bought the car, and that's something a lot of you guys do, right? You know, you'll buy these things off of eBay, or you'll buy them off, you know, a consignment deal and have them shipped, and you don't drive them. Well, this is what happens when you don't drive them. All right. So it's a typical flipper special. Okay, car's got beautiful paint. The interior was detailed nicely. Everything. It's got the stylish big wheels. It's exactly the kind of car that you see on these consignment dealer lots. You know, in their showrooms. The guy buys the car. He drives it. He takes his hands off the wheel. It wants to make a U-turn going to the right.
Yes.
Going to the right. He brings it to a mechanic. The mechanic says, "You know, we can fix this by putting a rack and pinion steering in it." So they rip out all of the steering and they put a rack in there. Guy takes the car for a ride, does the same thing. Wants to make a U-turn when you take your hands off the wheel. So then ends up here at Chuck's chassis table. And now, before I go any further, right? You guys, we've done a number of these videos, and you guys right away are like, you know, "Oh, but you know, the car's on consignment. The dealer doesn't know any better. You know, it's not the dealer's fault." You know, listen, right? That's bullshit. And I tell you what, it's bullshit. Psychologically, when a person goes to a dealer, right, a dealer to buy a car, they have the impression that there's some sort of accountability. That if there's something, that they have the impression that the person who's showing them the car actually knows something about cars. They have the impression that, you know, the business license on the wall makes them accountable for, you know, severe problems, especially like frame problems that may have to do with these cars. And none of that is true. It's a scam, right? The salesmen don't know anything about the cars. The dealers have no accountability to the cars, and the buyer only finds this out after he's signed all of the papers and the money's changed hands, and you end up with this. So at any rate, Chuck's got it on the table, and we started going through the car to point out some of the fine details. Chuck, why don't you take it from here and show them what you found with this thing.
Okay, first thing we noticed is in the car there is a couple of frame rails here, and the frame rails, they do not match up to the firewall correctly. And there's obvious signs of repair. There's tack welds, there's screws, there's just things that shouldn't be here. Over here's a crack right here, you know, in the shock tower. There's a whole lot of issues going on in the car.
Hey, don't forget this. Look at this sheet metal screw. They added something inside the car. I think it's one of the paneless harnesses, and they're in the sheet metal screw, and the sheet metal screw is actually, it's up into the brake line, the metal brake line. Just the kind of workmanship that you find on this type of car.
Exactly. We always have to be aware of that kind of thing. Now, underneath the car, there's obvious signs of repair down here. There is Bondo work, there's sheet metal screws, pipe rivets, all kinds of things holding the floor in place, where they replaced part of the floor, not the whole floor. Upon further inspection, we actually cut out part of the floor. We noticed that the holes in the frame rails, they are stretched in opposite directions. So this car's obviously been on a frame machine and pulled from one end to the other to straighten it out. As well as that, when they put the floor in, they didn't weld the subframe rails back to the bottom of the floor.
Go around.
Yeah, let's go take a look.
Show the inside of the car. Come on, you stand on the side.
Right here is obviously part of the damage. Something happened on this side of the car. Now, we take a look up in here and we see a bunch of welds. This panel has actually been replaced in the very front. You know, things like this. The vents have been welded in place. You know, no vents in the car anymore. And along through here is really bad. They put a lot of Bondo and fiberglass in here, and it's obviously not good. these frame rails here weren't welded back to the actual floor to make this whole thing stable. The transmission mount wasn't welded to the floor in this area.
Now specify for people, make them understand that this is a unibody car.
Yes, this is a unibody car. This
so
is
having those frame rails tied into the floor is a key structural
very
component
important. Very important. And when we look down in here, obviously you can't see it, but there's a hole down in here, and they've used this hole to actually stretch this car. You know, this is telltale sign of the car being on a frame machine, and always look at those holes down there and make sure these right here are actually secured to the floor. And along here you can see this whole area right here has little spot welds here and there, and none of these spot welds are even dressed out or anything. They didn't bother to put it in correctly. What else?
Well, look at the height difference on the jack
Yes,
stand.
yes. And if you look here, the jack stands, we put the jack stands under the car, sitting on the table, and there's obviously a height difference. This one is lower than that one.
By about an inch.
By about an inch. And, you know, that is very important that those are very straight, or the car will not track or drive correctly. What else? Did we miss anything?
I don't know. There's so much.
Yes, there is.
I think the viewers have got the point here, right?
Right.
You know, these guys go out of their way to polish a turd and just pass it off as quickly and as you know, no accountability. If you're looking at buying a car, especially from one of these dealers, right, you need to drive it. If there's anything that's even slightly off before any money changes hands, you need to get that car to somebody who knows chassis, or who knows whatever area it is of the car that's giving you concern, whether it's, you know, an engine noise, or the way it runs, or the way it handles, the way it stops, the way it feels as it goes down the road. Don't just take one of these cars around the block. You know, take it for a ride, put it through its paces, because they're counting on you to just, you know, fall in love with it. You know, oh, the red paint, the stylish wheels, the chrome under the motor, you know, chrome under the hood. It goes blah, 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 when, you know, and they're expecting an emotional buy, right? Keep your head together. You know, it's a machine, and it's been doctored, it's been poofed to give it the best possible impression. You know, to fool you. Don't let yourself be taken. That's it. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
See you guys tomorrow.